Spring training has started, and one of the big questions that we've been wanting to answer, well, has just been answered, and that's by Craig Counsell, who said that Christopher Morel on Saturday said this to the media, will be playing third base to start spring training. Let's see how it goes. I think that's a brilliant strategy, something that addresses a need for the Cubs, and it also gives us an idea of what Christopher Morel's future will be with the North Siders. Let's talk about the hot corner when we come back. But first, let me remind you guys that this is the Cubs baseball channel, and we want you on our roster. And it's easy to do. We're looking for some third basemen, looking for some star pitchers. Hey, for those of you that have been here and hung out with us, thanks for coming back again. And if this is your first time, go Cubs. Here's your invitation. Make sure that you subscribe. Give us a thumbs up if you like Cubs content. What do you say, guys? I'm Mick Gillispie. Welcome to the Cubs baseball channel at Broadcaster Mick on the socials. And it is great to see all of you guys today as we talk about Christopher Morel. And this has been one of the big conversation pieces that we've had. And that's, what do you do with Christopher Morel? Where do you play him? So let's break it down again. Morel has been a great power hitter. And when you look at his numbers in his short career, 221 games, he's got 41 home runs, 117 runs batted in, and a 241 batting average. Strikes out a lot, could get on base more. But if you were able to take that production, consistently put up those power numbers, and then play third base, you got something. The problem for Morel has been at the hot corner, he has not been very good defensively. So when you look at him as a player in his young career, second base has been by far his most consistent position on the field. Well, the Cubs have Nico Horner there. Center field is his second most productive position. The problem is the other guys are way better than him defensively. In center, talking about Mike Tauchman, who I think is going to eventually get passed in center by Pete Crow Armstrong, Hollywood Pete, and Alexander Canario, right? So you got three guys who are going to battle that spot out. We're going to do a video on that probably maybe tomorrow or the next day, sometime soon. But Morel, more or less, is a fourth or a fifth option in center with the way that the roster is configured right now. Then you look at third base, and it by far is the biggest hole that the Cubs have on this roster, on this team. If it's not Morel, you're looking at Nick Madrigal, who is a very good defender, probably the best defensive third baseman that the Cubs have right now. He can make the plays. He's got enough arm to get the outs. He's very accurate. He's smart, takes care of business, good footwork, all that stuff, right? But he doesn't hit for power. I mean, he's a contact guy. I don't want to say he's a slap hitter, but he's a contact hitter. And he can get on base with contact. He can spoil a lot of pitches. And I feel like he's a really good utility guy. And who knows? He's coming back now for 2 years after that horrific hamstring injury. I'm excited to see what he can do. I've been a fan of his since he was drafted by the White Sox in the first round, same draft as Nico. And I think that eventually he could turn into a really good player, but I see him more as a second baseman too, like Morel, and not a third baseman. But he's an option, a good utility option there for the Cubs. He just doesn't hit for power. And at third base, you want power. A Ramos Ramirez, Ron Santo type power. Guys that are going to drive in a lot of runs, like 41 home runs in 2 seasons in limited action. That's why Morel would be a good choice for that position. Then you got Patrick Wisdom, who I don't think is a defensive option. I think he would be better suited in that DH role than being in the field because he is a detriment to the team defensively. Doesn't have good hands and makes a lot of mistakes. Sometimes they show up as errors and sometimes they don't, but they're plays that should be made. So you have him in the mix. Miles Masterboni, another utility type guy to me, scrappy hitter. I do like the way that the guy grinds. I just don't see him as an everyday third baseman putting up the type of production that you want from your third baseman. But he's got a decent glove. We didn't really see a whole lot of him last year at third. He was kind of up and back and forth. He's also a guy that I think will eventually be designated for assignment and end up somewhere else. He just seems like one of those guys that bounces from team to team, but I could be wrong. He's an option. And then you start getting into the minor league options, which are very interesting. And that is obviously the Cubs' first round pick, Matt Shaw. He's played, 30 some games as a professional baseball player after being drafted out of college. I don't think that makes you ready. I think he could definitely compete for the position, but I would say next year would probably be a pretty short window for a guy in the minor leagues to get to the big leagues. Anything can happen, though, and this is a day and age where guys get pushed up there. So maybe it's him. I don't think so. B.J. Murray, not hearing his name a lot, but I would throw him in the mix as well. He was tremendous in Double-A in spurts last year. Was in the Futures game as well. Great eye. Still could improve defensively, but I think he will eventually be in the major leagues, and he plays third base, right? And he just completed a season in Double-A where he held his own. So those are the options to me. But when you talk about Morel, the thing about Morel is the 911, 911. Call 911. The 911 fielding percentage is just, that's not good enough. So when he gets to camp, you get, a couple of weeks of practice, drills and all of that stuff, kind of, going over the fundamentals. And then you get into the spring training games and you may play 4 innings. You may play 5. You could also go to the minor league fields when those guys show up, the backfields, and play in some games. So I don't know how dedicated the Cubs are going to be as far as pushing Morel defensively towards this spot. I mean, really getting in there and making him pound it. They don't want him to get hurt early in the year, too. I mean, part of spring training is easing in. But the reason why I think it is important for him to show that he can do this is the way that the market is right now with Matt Chapman as one of the Boris clients that hasn't signed. This gives the Cubs, Craig Counsell, an opportunity to see if Christopher Morel could possibly be the Cubs' everyday third baseman. Now, to me, the biggest issue for Morel at third base is arm angle, the way that he throws the ball to first. And I'm sure there's a sophisticated name for it. But it just doesn't look like the way that he naturally throws is inducive to make that throw corner to corner. So what do? Well, I go back to Addison Russell. I remember Addison Russell being traded in the Samardzija deal from the A's to the Cubs. And the Cubs worked on Russell's throw. Some of it was footwork, and then some of it was release point, but they helped tweak him enough to where he got to the big leagues and was a really good defensive shortstop, made the plays, great athlete like Morel. So who knows? Maybe that's something that the Cubs have in store. They've got some great instructors. They're going to be paying close attention to Morel. And the other part of it is if you're the Cubs, is if you look at him at third base and you say, you know what, I don't think that this is going to happen. And you go out and you sign Matt Chapman, maybe you pull off that trade and send Morel to somewhere like Miami or Cleveland, places where you hear that there's interest, where there's been smoke, where the Cubs could definitely use something that they have on their roster and vice versa. And the fact that the guys put up these type of numbers makes him very valuable. And maybe there's a team that has second base available or center field, because every team kind of has different needs. So that's where we are right now. We'll keep an eye on this as camp progresses. This is the first, I think, really big story out of camp, is that Morel is going to focus on third base. And we heard during the offseason that maybe he was going to focus on first, but that was before the Michael Busch trade. We know Michael Busch can play third, but he played first in college, and I think that's where the Cubs really see him fitting in. So if that's the case, this is an opportunity for Morel. Morel's offensive production matches what you would want out of a third baseman. And so we'll see what happens. Guys, thanks for hanging out with us here on the Cubs Baseball channel. Get in the comments section. Love answering all of your comments, talking baseball with you guys on a daily basis. Like, subscribe, share with your Cubs friends, and just know that baseball season is here. So finally, we get to focus on the game that we love. And thank all of you guys again for being part of the Cubs Baseball channel. I want to remind you, too, that our channel is presented by the folks at the Tennessee Smokies team store, smokiesbaseball.com/store. Check it out for yourself. The blue-haired Pete Crow Armstrong, Hollywood Pete, signed some stuff. I think it's available at the store. I know that there's jerseys and cards and all kind of cool stuff there. So find out for yourself, smokiesbaseball.com/store. But they got Cubs gear, they got championship gear, and also at great prices. I promise you that as well.